So Tony, you want to get us rolling?
Sure. Let's get this show started. Can you share your screen, Mike? We'll
I
run
don't know
through.
how.
Yeah, it's technology, and we're a technology company. We'll run through the housekeeping items. While Mike's getting his screen up, just a quick reminder of the purpose of this. We do this for you all. You're our customers. We want to help our system admins up their game. We also, want to support you all as your Issuetrak admins come and go. So that was really kind of the purpose of this. It also gets you FaceTime with professional services, which they're really our product experts of record. We hold these monthly at the second Thursday of each month at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's a 2-hour nominal block that we use. It's a lot of time. You can come and go as you see fit. We record these. We put them on our website, issuetrak.com. When we're looking at a website, somebody can show the video on demand links. That would be helpful. We're also changing up. Previously, the non-presenting professional service person and myself, we'd monitor both chat and the Q&A. So we're moving forward just to monitor the Q&A forum. So if you have questions, raise them there. We'll either answer them or work them into the presentation. Today's outline, we're going to have focus a lot on the assets and asset management. Mike's first session is going to be issues and assets. Also talking about recurring issues, doing maintenance on your assets, stuff like that. The deep dive will be on the asset management module, how to leverage that. New features, we're going to have the product owner, John, present on that. We're talking about changes to the UI and newly released Azure integration.
Tony, we did make a change on that presentation session. Paul's going to actually do that, and John's going to help out.
Okay.
That's how we're going to do this one.
No I missed the memo.
You missed the memo.
Yep. And we still got a 15-minute Q&A on the agenda that may get absorbed into the new features and capabilities, but we're flexible and we'll take care of everybody's questions. So here's the usual cohorts. There's my mug shot. I'm an East Coast boy, bounced around a little bit between schools. I enjoyed it too much. It was the best 12 years of my life in college. Mike hails from Virginia as well. He's the longest employee by tenure at Issuetrak. He's had his hands in all the different departments at Issuetrak. And then bringing up the rear, we have Paul Harris. He's a local factory boy, made a name for himself on Issuetrak tech support, and then went to the dark side, configuring Issuetrak sites for customers. So you're in great hands with Mike and Paul. I'm going to mute just so I don't disturb, and then we'll all be monitoring the Q&A with Paul. Thanks again for attending.
Well, everyone, I'm going to get started now, kind of my session. Today's session is on IT maintenance, and I'm really going to use one of my training sites to try to give you some information. So we're going to go through a lot of different things in here. First off, I want to say thank you for attending. We appreciate you coming by and presenting us with an audience for us to talk to. And again, if you have questions and answers, please use that question and answer section. Paul and Tony are really monitoring that. They'll stop me in case they think something that I need to address to the entire team. So please put those in there, and that way we can go ahead and record your answers and your questions and make sure that we address anything that we can't do during this session. So that'll help us out a lot. So the way we're going to present this one is I'm going to run through a training site that has already been pre-configured with some different features. I'd like to go ahead and be able to show you in this site some of the things that we have done in the past with other customers, show you how those particular type of issues work, explain to you a little bit about what we're doing here and what we're trying to do. When you're looking at IT management, IT maintenance, ITSM, there's a lot of different features in here, but for the most part, what I like to discuss is going to be incidents, service requests, changes and problems. And I'm going to really focus on mostly incidents and service requests on here because it's the meat and potatoes of your day-to-day work. You still have problems that you bring in, or you'll have projects that you want to address. So you'll have all of those also, because of course you're addressing things that go on within your instance of Issuetrak or your instance of your work, so that you're doing work. So that's what we want to do, is focus on the work and what features of Issuetrak can help you. So if you're not familiar with all the features and all of the things, I'm going to try to point out as many of them as I can during this presentation, so that you can be aware of things that you may look at as you're going through here. So let's kind of get started with what I'm going to do. So in this setup that I'm going to do, I'm going to start with some quick picks. And I've set up a bunch of quick picks that just kind of begin with webinar. And we look through here at the type of quick picks that we're going to run through today. Essentially an equipment request. Someone needs to replace or order new equipment. Purchases. So we want to go through a purchase process where we're going to say, okay, I need to get approvals for the purchasing or expenditure of this particular money in both hardware and software. They're not that much different. The process or the approval process can be pretty much exactly the same. So you could go ahead and have different types for those because you may have a different process or a different way of looking at it. Here's one that's kind of a quick incident. So these are roughly incidents. Here I had one that we set up for managing a lot of school systems. These days we have a lot of school systems. They're using Chromebooks. They wanted to identify those. So we kind of gave us a quick hitter about Chromebooks. One that's related to hardware. So it could be any hardware problem that's being submitted. An application. So we have a problem with some sort of application that we're trying to get over to the team. A network outage, or even just a quick contact. Now, quick contact was an interesting one. I was working with one of our customers on site, and one of the problems they presented me with was that, I get drive-bys, or I'm going out to someone's desk, and what happens is on my way to a problem location, I'm getting hit 3 or 4 times by people stopping me. Hey, can you do this? Hey, you can do this. One take this out, a couple minutes. And because of the way that help desk was structured, they were missing all of those drive-bys when they were looking at how many incidents they were handling during the day. So we wanted to create a way of quickly just submitting an issue as fast as possible. Nothing more than saying, I did something. It was this person. I talked to this person. I did it. I close it immediately. So I call it a quick contact or drive-by type situation. This one was an IT incident that's going directly to an IT tech, and then have another type of incident that's going to the manager. It depends on the severity of what was being submitted on which way we wanted to route it. So we created a little bit different routing, just showing you how to do that. It's not a big deal. And then this one is going to be one that's kind of like a printer problem. But it's going to be an associated where I'm actually putting a custom message on the screen. So this one is driven specifically for printer problems, and it goes to a knowledge base article that has a video about how to fix printer problems. So it's kind of a nice little way of showing you some additional capabilities that you can use with your custom screens and with your knowledge base articles in order to make them more effective for your users. So there's just a nice little demonstration of that capability. So we'll talk about that one today. Sometimes, of course, we have to go in and retire an asset. So either IT is going to put this in where it's come to a time for replacement. We've got budget for playing for this year, so we're going to replace a laptop, or we've had a problem where that particular asset has been lost, stolen, replaced, sat on, you name it. Especially when you're talking about school systems and you talk about some of the accidents that they have dealing with students, everything from left on top of the car, just like the commercial with the goldfish on top of it and the guy's driving away. People have left laptops and Chromebooks and everything else on top of cars, driven away, and bam, right on the floor, laptop gone, got to be replaced. One guy told me he had a student set on his. So he actually sat on his laptop and broke the screen. So you never know what's going to happen. And of course, life happens. So we have things like this. And unfortunately, lost goes into stolen. I have had reports in working with customers over the years where things have missed. They have just disappeared. They never heard to be found again. We issued it. It never came back. So unfortunately, we have to report that as stolen, because a lot of times what happens is in our auditings of our IT assets, those items still have to be accounted for because they're part of our asset list. So if an item is stolen, lost, whatever happens to be, then we need to know what happened to it. Was it lost? Was it stolen? Was it put into a trash pile because it was broken beyond repair, whatever? We're going to show you how to do that in some of the second session today, where we're talking about dealing with the asset itself. So we report it on the issue side, and then we update the asset record with the status of lost, stolen, trash, whatever happens to be. Donation was another one that came up, where we're donating the asset to someone, especially with PCs. Request for user access. So a lot of times it's a service request where we just need to grant access to something, the approval process that may or may not need to be occurring at that point. A change to access. So if someone needs to have their access increased or removed, we're still recording that through an issue. So it's a lot of different types of issues that we're reporting in here. You could have issues that were creating direct projects. So it was a request for an IT project or a project that needs IT assistance. You may have those. If it's a change request, you may have those included in here. I have a lot of those that we've used in previous webinars. So I kind of didn't want to focus too much, especially on the change request, because we have done that before. But I do have examples of that I can show really quickly if there is a request for it. So let's go ahead and just kind of start with the basics. This is going to just be a quick request. And of course, when we're formatting this, we're saying, okay, this is our request form. So we're just putting in basic information. Now, the asset information that's associated with this may not be here because we don't have the asset created or associated yet. So in this particular case, we're saying it's assigned to our help desk user. We're just putting in basic information in here, and it's a new request. And then down at the bottom, we're actually using the task list to tell us what we would like to request. Now, in this particular case, the way this is set up is I can pick just a laptop, for example, and you'll see that I've already have a dynamic change in here to associate a task to go ahead and have a laptop issued out to the help desk team. And I might need a monitor. So again, a second task to issue the monitor. So here, I'll just mark the rest of these as not being applicable because they're not needed. So in this particular type of list, a manager, for example, or even a user could request access or request that these assets be issued to a particular user. Now, you may have additional information on here, of course, you would use with your user-defined fields. The submitter could be the manager, and then you may have employee name on here to identify which employee to asset these to. It just depends on how your form needs to be filled out and how your information needs to be done. But this is the idea. Essentially, by using the task manager, I'm creating a multi-select field that you can use. So in here, we can do multiple assets. And this asset list, of course, is just one. You could have all different types of assets and combinations in here. You could open up additional tasks in here so that if there was an approval needed, especially for something like a cell phone, because of the expense, especially of some of the smartphones these days, they get really expensive really fast. And so it could be a situation with that where it has to go through a purchase request before it could actually be issued. So we may even have a secondary step on there in there. But this just gives you an idea of how you could do it. Some of you may also notice this field called associated issues. You're going to see this pop up in a lot of different places. There may be a situation where there needs to be a purchase request. Well, the purchase request needs to be, let's say, a brand new issue. Well, in that case, I submit issue number 105 to be a purchase request, and this is issue number 100. So what I want to do is I want to provide a link to issue number 105 because it's referencing this particular request. So what I can do then in that case is put in issue number 105 as an associated issue. And I'm not sure I'm going to have 105 in here, but I'll look. And then I can just go ahead and add that issue to it. Let's see here. I'm going to submit this one. Oh, Paul says I need to put in a 0 on the end of it and do it that way. So we'll submit an issue here. Severity is being required. Now, in case you don't know what severity is, severity happens to be something that's going to be starting off with the service level agreements. Because a lot of these type of requests may or may not need a service level applied to them, we can apply the severity or not. In this case, there needs to be some value. If I needed to go ahead and have a value in this field and I did not want to apply a service level agreement, I could create a dummy service level in here that wasn't associated with any of our service level terms, and it would go ahead and submit the issue and still meet the criteria of it being there. So I could do it that way too. So I'm going to make this a low and submit issue. And of course, it needs a requirement date. So I'm going through a lot of things that's got to have a requirement date. Oh, there it is. So in this case, we added a requirement date. Now, you'll notice there is a clock icon on here. So another feature that could be used to match with that is actually our calendar functionality, which gives us the ability to set a reminder date. So we'll put that one in there. So you can put a calendar function in here. And then that will set up a reminder. That will go out to the email to the help desk user, and it will be recurs daily 1 week before the actual issuance, and we'll set the reminder. Now, Paul says 1045 will work.
Actually, 1485. Try that one.
145.
1485. 1485.
Thank you, Paul.
Now try your edit.
That worked.
Here we go.
So there we go, and we submit the issue. Teamwork here.
I think it's from when we were testing delete issue, Mike.
Yeah,
one of our delete issue things
we got deleted. We got delete happy.
Yeah.
But see, this provides now a link to that issue, so I can just click on it, and it will bring that issue up. And as you can see, I was just making sure that you could understand how that's associated. And I'll hit back here. We'll go ahead and close that one up so you can see how it works out. Now, on the calendar functionality, if I go to calendar, and I'm going to remove this so I can see all the filters, and I'll hit apply here. Replace the following equipment. It's got a deadline on it. And there's a reminder. So you see how these features now can be used together in order to help you service your requests that do come in when it's something like this. And then I can see those events if I change the view. And see the event here. So it depends on how you need to see the views on here. Now I had to change it to no filter because my user, it was actually filtering all of the events that were on this calendar by ones that were directly associated with me. In this case, I wanted to be broader. I wanted to see more things. Now, another thing that I want to point out on this particular asset is that once I submitted this particular issue, it also associated this issue with an asset record. Because in the asset history, my user, Mike Wright, is associated with this particular asset. So if I click on this from an asset perspective, I can see the asset record. I can see the details of the record, and I'll go over that again a little bit later, but I want to show you how the issues and assets can then be associated with each other. In addition to that, of course, I can view any history of any additional issues that have already been submitted underneath that asset record. In case there was a problem or recurring problem that you needed to view, you can see that once that asset is associated with that issue. So it's got a lot of information that we've done very quickly just by making a quick re-equipment request. Now, I could go back in, edit this issue, and remove the asset because it really doesn't have anything to do with it. It's not a break fix, or I could change that asset to another asset if it was relevant. So let's take a look at another type of issue. So we're going to submit the issue. Again, we'll do the webinar. So we're just going to type it in here. And let's do another purchase request. Now, the reason I kind of wanted to go through this purchase request is because I wanted to show you the ability for us to look at things from a dollar point of view. So we look down here at the bottom, and I'm going to go through the tasking. And in this one, of course, whenever we want to make a purchase history, we're going to have an approval by the department manager. So this issue is assigned to a department manager. The IT manager has to approve it. And then they need to select the vendors. And then it says, does this require bid process? So it could be in your procedures. You've got to say it depends on how expensive it is. Anything above $1,000 has to be bidded out. Anything below $1,000, the IT manager can go ahead and approve. So if we say yes, then it may say, okay, we need to solicit the bids. We need to do the comparison of the submission process. We need to present the proposal to the department head. Then the department head has to go ahead and give the approval. So they need to know how much they're going to spend and whether we're going to approve that before we can move forward on the approval. And in this particular case, it can go ahead and have senior management approval of the bid. And then it could even say, okay, that's approval of the bid. It's not for the approval of the dollars. Is the purchase over $500? Well, yes, it is. Well, we have to put in an additional form. We have, say, purchasing now approves this after the form has been submitted. And it's over $1,500. Because it's over $1,500, senior management has to approve it. So you can run through a series of questions and get an idea of what that block is or where that approval process is, and add that to your process and have Issuetrak go ahead and route it to the right approving entity according to the process. And this could be done for hardware, it could be done for software. Actually, it could be done for anything. You could have the same type purchasing approvals done, or even some processes that require approvals that are leveraged according to either dollars. I've had travel do that. Even here, you know, there's a dollar limit that if Paul and I were taking a travel, we have to get our manager's approval in order to expend the funds to make a trip, for example. Or if you have something like that where you are doing some expenditures and they are required a certain level of expenditures, you have to have approval. So therefore, you may add in that type of process in here. And it could be for any department that you're using. And of course, you can always include your attachments on here for any documentation that you want to include. So, and when you hit this, and you've got all your process done. So another type, let's go ahead and look at another option in here. Now, like I said, I'd show you software. Software is pretty much exactly the same process. The only thing is its categorizations. Service, purchase new software. It goes in and goes through the same process, as I said before. So an interesting way of doing this. And here again, then we can come back in here and do things like the Chromebooks. So this is going to be now, instead of a service request like a purchase or requesting new software, this is going to be a daily issue. And I'm actually, I'll do the Chromebooks one really quickly, and then I'll come and show you a couple others. But here's just the Chromebooks. Please use the drop down to select the following areas for your problem. So we put a message on here. Issue type, subtypes, whatever it happens to be. It can give a room, in this case, what room is it in, what station is it in? So these are user-defined fields. Subject line, description, statuses. It's assigned to Tony Lovelace, so Tony is going to go ahead and handle this one for us. And then the location, in this particular case, defaulted into a particular school. Now, this could be a building, it could be whatever you want it. In this particular case, it has Big Pine Academy in here, but there are other locations that it could be related to. All we have to do is hit search, and then we can figure out exactly which one it belongs to. Now, when we do that, the business rules come into play, because we could have auto assignment rules playing on the back side. If we change the location, an auto assignment could go to the service person for that location, and then they would be assigned to it instead of Tony. So on submission, it would go ahead and change that assignment. That's what it would do as we're going through here. And it could be for other things that goes on. If we change the issue types, that would do the same thing. So we're also using business rules when we're actually working with these issues. So let's take a look now at this one, the IT tech. And I'll look at the IT manager first. This was a little bit more generic. Essentially, it doesn't really have any more than this is an incident. So I'm coming back to incident versus service. This is an incident request. You can go ahead and change it over to a project or service, so you could flip it if you needed to, but it gives that general categorization. Sometimes I put incident service request at the highest level of the service type. Sometimes I'll put those into the class functionality to get better reporting. It just depends on the requirements of the service desk manager and the people that I'm working with when I'm configuring a site. So it's got a lot of good information in here that you can use. Then, of course, you've got your assets you're required by day and your assignments. And then, of course, I'm doing nothing more on this one than just saying, was this resolved? Was this not resolved? And when I say yes, then it goes ahead and applies it. Now, because I'm doing yes, no's, and A's, I can also apply the substatus on here by default if I needed to do that. A lot of times when I do resolve, then I would have resolved go right here to the subtype immediately. Now, because of the way I'm working it, of course, I'm not adding much to it. I want to go over this quick contact really quickly. Essentially, this one is nothing more than recording a contact with a customer. Essentially, I've gone down a hallway, someone stopped me, they wanted me to do something really quickly. I looked at the screen, I unlocked their screen, off and running, they're good. So all I want to do is say I spent 5 minutes with them. So you could just put in an issue like this and just record what you did. You don't need all this link to Kiwi log. You don't need all this recorded or related issues. Only thing you need really to do is assign it to yourself and move on. That's all you needed. And it's just recording that a service incident occurred on this date and time. I don't need much more than that in order to record the incident. That way you're knowing the number of contacts you had for the day and you know how much you're actually working. Now, another one that you go in here is like a user access request. So another service type request. In the service type request, I'm coming in here and I'm saying, okay, is employee name, plans grant the access to, what's the justification? So I'm asking for justification because I need to approve this. I may go in here and then I'll say, okay, the department manager has to approve. If the department manager has to approve, who owns the data? Is it the IT manager? Is it the HR manager? Who owns that data? Well, I'm going to assign this task to them because they need to approve that this particular person can have access to this particular system. Maybe it's a finance system. I want to send this over to the controller and have the controller make a decision on whether this person can have access to this particular resource or not. Once it's approved, then I can run that to IT. Then IT can say, yes, I can do this. And then in this particular case, the access is granted. And then I need a confirmation that the user who submitted this request has confirmed that they now have the request that was accessed. Yes, go ahead and do it. If not, then I can rotate it right back through the same process again because either something went wrong or something in the approval process wasn't right. So I could route this back through a loop if I needed to do that just by answering no, because the actual changes will come up here by completing here. This actually goes right on back to user access change. It begins again. I'm just adding in the task group. Here, if I know, it would just complete the process and close it. So using the features that we have in the task manager help us do that dynamic changes, as you all know. Now, one I am going to go up here and I'm going to pick on a little bit is I'm going to go here to the application support. Now, in application support, this is just a basic. So I've got a problem with an application. Issuetrak's an application, so therefore we can do that. So you've got your application in here. You can define which application it happens to be. And then of course, then you can route this directly to an IT technician. Now, if you wanted to route this to an IT technician and directly to application support, one of the ways you can do it is you can go into the task manager and you can add a task group. And you can have a task group that might be tier 2 application support. So I'm going to route this directly to the agent D who's handling application support and save this. So this issue would route to both the IT technician and to agent D to handle this particular request. And if I had another problem and it needed to go to tier 2 at the same time, I could come in here and route this to tier 2. So we can do this also. In this particular case, it goes to both of the users because it gives you a quick way of having someone to actually route to other team members if necessary, so that they can all work on this together as a team. Because we need to pull resources from application support, we need to pull resources from tier 2, and the IT technician is taking primary responsibility for the issue. Now, this also works for other teams. Now, let's say if we had a situation with an onboarding or a new equipment request and we needed to pull in the facilities team, then we could also pull the facilities team in the same manner. Or if we had facilities requests and they came through the service desk, then you could route them to the facilities team also. So you can do all of that just depending on how you set up your issue types and how you set everything up. As you see, I'm using the same set of tools. It's just how I apply the tools to the problem or to the request that's needing to be made. I'm using the same set of features over and over again, and they're just being done a little bit differently in order to meet the requirements that you set up. That's what this is. Instead of us telling you how to do it, we give you a tool and you tell us how you want to do it. That's what the flexibility is all about. So whenever you decide that you've got something that you want to do here in IT, you've got a lot of tools that you may or may not be aware of. Now, when I say that, there's a couple of things that I want you to look at. Number one is look in your site and go to the features icon. So go to the gear icon at the top, go to features, and take a look at some of the features that may or may not be enabled in your site. So you can come down here and see where things are checked in this site, and there's a lot of different features. For example, you may not have turned on the calendar functionality. Therefore, you're not going to get that little alarm clock. Therefore, the feature is not going to be used. You may not be using what's called the departments, or even a big one in IT, global issues. Global issues is a feature that allows you to associate an issue with another issue and create a parent-child relationship. So it gives you that ability to say, okay, I've got 15 issues being created because of email problems. Email's down today. So what I want to do is I want to take one of those reports and I want to promote it to a global issue. This gives you that capability to do that. Oh, and by the way, I want to link it to 15 other issues that have already been reported about the same problem. Great. So now what happens? When I link it, then these checkboxes say synchronize the information. And go ahead and synchronize the information here so that the linked issues now will synchronize with the parent. And when we change the information on the parent, propagate it down to the linked, including propagating note to all and including closing all. So that will go ahead and work so that you can go ahead and propagate it out. In addition to that, when this feature is enabled on our homepage, then you can have the global issues displayed on the issue hub as one of the tabs. And you can go ahead then and show the information here so that you can do a quick submit about an existing issue. All you have to do is click submit here, and then it will submit an issue essentially underneath your name. So it's a quick way of doing this. There are other options in here, including not using the cascade functionality. Sometimes you want to just link the issues together. So you can select either global issues or you can use linked issues to have a link together. So it gives you good capability of doing both in case you want to do that. Another thing that's a nice feature that you may not leverage is actually underneath the administration section. It's called recurring issues. In this case, you're creating issues. Preventive maintenance is a great example of that, where you're doing PM maintenance on servers, or you're doing PM maintenance on the AC coolers in the server room, whatever it happens to be, you can use that. Another one that I set up in here was nothing more than being able to set up a pre-planning issue for Agile meetings. So you can go in here and set up a actual issue that would fire off on Mondays for the meeting that's on Wednesday, so that you could go ahead and have an issue associated in here and have, okay, this is going to be what we're going to cover. I'm going to assign this issue to everyone or notify everyone about this so they know exactly what the agenda is for this particular issue. Then at the end of this issue, since it's going to create a standard issue or a work item, you can add notes about what occurred during that Agile meeting and put it in here. And then you can then take those notes to apply to, say, your project board in order to update your Kanban board about what's going to happen during the next 2 weeks. Provides almost your documentation for what you've done on the Kanban board. Now, a lot of times you're doing that real live, so just depends on what type of processes you need to set up. But it's a good tool to do notifications with. Other things that you would do if you happen to have reports that need to be done, if you happen to have recurring issues that need to occur, those are things that you can use in here. So remember the tools that you have at your hands in order to do IT maintenance. If you just look here, business rules, auto assignments, escalation notifications, substatus change, being able to set a substatus on an issue to go ahead and be able to place something on hold. You've got classes in order to change or give a grouping capability to your issues. Custom screens, of course, to build specific custom screens. And I want to get to that example before I end today. You've got your incoming email. I want to mention that, of course, because a lot of times that is going to be one of the ways that you're going to submit issues. Email sent into the mailbox. Mailbox then creates the issue, and it can also update the issue with a note from a response. Another little tool that kind of goes with that is also important is when we get into Issuetrak now, another thing that we're building is the ability for you to use web forms in order to do some types of some of these. So here you can actually build a form and have that form either send an email to create an issue that has information that can be drawn directly into Issuetrak, or you can use an API in order to update the issue too. So we're beginning to see more and more of those being used also. If you need information on either API or even web API or web form specifically, go ahead and contact your sales rep in order to talk to them, or talk to the support team, or to us in PS, and we'll be happy to talk to that. So I think that's another one going in here. Another couple of things that are in here too, of course, is if you've got your quick pick functionality, as I've been using drastically in these demonstrations to launch the issues out, categorizing your issue types, restricting their access. Don't forget about that. I had that come up yesterday. For example, if I was you notice in this particular demo, this is a lot of different types of information in here. And what I've done is I've restricted access to some of these issue types by organization, so that if you belong to operations organization, you only get issue types related to operations. If you belong to the school system, you only get school systems issue types. So you can do restrictions according to either groups or organizations in here, which is a very important thing for you. You can even do it at the subtype level too. You have restriction capability there, so you can even hide subtypes. You can do that also with the quick picks and the knowledge base articles also. So you have tools that can help you in order to keep the information there and relevant to you. So other things, of course, is you have a mass update functionality in order to update some of the fields. There are not as many in here as you want, but they are assigned to class, required by status. This field list will change according to what features you have enabled in Issuetrak. So be aware of that. Priorities and quick picks. Service level agreements are very important in IT. You do have service level agreements capability. It is an optional feature that must be turned on the features page. Then you can set up both the severities that you want to use. So they're the terms that you saw when I did the drop down. And then I can apply service level terms in here, and I'm going to show you the terms. So for example, an issue must be responded to. If it's a critical issue, it must have a public note added within 1 hour of submission, or it's going to go out of compliance. It must be closed within 4 hours of submission. If it's a low severity, then I've got 24 hours to add a public note, and I've got over 900 hours to close it. And it only counts times between 8 and 5 p.m. on your Monday through Friday days. So there's a lot of capabilities built within this in order to help you meet your compliance requirements. And then we have reports that can run off of that. Now, other things that can come into play here, and I want to go to one of these issues. So I'm going to go back to submit for quickly. And I want to go to one of these quick picks. And the one I want to use is actually this one. This is kind of showing you some of the things that, of course, you can do with custom screens. In the custom screen here, we put this big notice in here that's in red. And we did this with an on-screen message. But what we did is we embedded a hyperlink within the message so that we could send you over to a formatted article that was essentially information about it, including having an embedded video link in here, so you could actually play the YouTube directly in the knowledge base articles. So that would be a nice way of being able to do that. Let me pause this thing. And of course, you see different formatting options in here. Additional resources are in here, so it goes out to the supports. This one even has one going out to RICO support. So you could find different items in here according to what you need. So you can embed a lot of different information in here. The ability for you to use the on-screen messages is got a lot of ability to use raw HTML in it. So you can do a lot of different things in there in order to make the product more robust and make those custom screens really work for you. We'll have examples of those, some of those coming up in future webinars. But you can see how this one is much more dynamic and has a lot more information that you can use in here in order to be useful for you. You also saw on that issue that Paul brought up, 1480, Paul?
1485.
1485. I wanted to bring that one up too, because it was something I kind of didn't show you. This right here is actually a Google Sheet. And what we did here is we actually embedded a Google Sheet within a custom screen so that you could see a list of sample data or a report from Google or something like that, where you wanted to embed it within a custom screen. You could actually do that if you needed to do that. You could actually have the report show up as part of the information in the description, because again, it has that rich text editor available with it too. So a lot of different capabilities according to what you want to use within this functionality here. So I just want to kind of point that out too. That was a good issue for Paul to bring up in here, is because it had this embedded image in here. So now, other things, reporting, of course, you have the full functionality reports. We've gone over reports in the past, but remember, all of the information that you add on your issues will be able to show up in the reports. Now, I'm running long and I'm getting into my next session because we're running about a half an hour. And I want to go ahead and kind of stop here. So what I'm going to do now and do in the next session, and I'm going to do that in a couple minutes, we're going to break for about 5 minutes, give everybody a little time to get a little coffee and something to drink, and then we're going to pick up again. Is we're going to then talk about the issues and about the asset management functionality. I'm going to go into that asset that I showed you on that issue, and I am going to show you some of the detailed information on it. I'm going to show you how the auditing functionality works. So it will actually run an audit live and show you how that functionality works and how it updates information on the issue, on the actual asset record, excuse me. And then show you some of the information and how we use it on some reporting tools. So stick around and I'll pick you up in about 5 minutes.